is a little known fact that the jolly old Saint Nick, Santa Claus himself, is a metalhead. What is more metal than rocking out with 8 reindeer and breaking and entering into houses through the chimney just to leave presents for people? And I'm pretty sure that's pretty metal. So let's take that energy with us today as we enter into this episode of The Metalhead, a meditative and chill podcast about metal music, but honestly, it's more about progressive rock music. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're doing well. I am your one host, Michael Michelle.
I'm Grace, and I'm doing alright, I guess.
Doing alright, you guess?
As life goes, you know, it's cold, it's dark outside, it's a bit miserable, but, could be worse.
Could be
Probably.
Probably. Yeah. So, what are you listening to? We like to open up this podcast with a little review of what we're listening to, maybe some shows we've been to.
Well, unfortunately, I have been listening to Wham.
You got whammed?
I got whammed, yeah.
Oh, no.
It didn't take very long for it to happen, but it happened. I'm out of the game. I'm dead. That's it. Game over. Sadly, yeah. So the last 2 years I've survived entirely, but this year, just like that, gone.
Yeah.
That's a bit gutting.
Yeah, for those that don't know, this is something called Whamageddon. It's trying to live through December without listening to Last Christmas by Wham.
And it's hard.
So here's the thing, though. I have several playlists of Christmas music that are all like 2 to 3 hours long. And so I have inevitably put Wham in one of those playlists. And
That's a rookie mistake.
I can't not listen to that playlist. I have to listen to it. So like I failed on like the second day, and it was my own choice. Like I fell on the sword. So yeah. I reserve the fate that
shopping mall, so
yeah. So other than Wham, what have you been enjoying?
I've also been listening to a lot of Hellas, which is a Swedish sort of more of a rock band, I guess, a kind of classic prog rock kind of band, but a new emergence of that. So they really play homage to the kind of sounds of the 70s, but they're pretty new. They've only been around for a decade, I think. And they have 3 records, an EP and 2 albums that are part of the same story, the story of Hellas. And I have just been listening to the 3 of those on repeat a little bit this last week. And I've been enjoying some Neil Morse as well. So not super metal necessarily, but yeah.
Oh man, I didn't. Oh, it's a live album. Phew. I was like, they have a new album out? Because I really
a live album. Yes.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, I love their Isles of Wisdom, and I love their Conundrum album from 2022 and 2020.
Yeah.
You were you at that show live at Circus?
Yeah, I met up with a bunch of friends that live in Stockholm because we were all like quite big Hellas fans. So yeah, we went along because they played the whole story of Hellas, the EP, the 2 albums in full as like a whole show.
Wow.
Followed by a couple of tracks from Isle of Wisdom because I think it had just come out, but that felt a bit like underwhelming to do that at the end.
Sure.
Because obviously no one really knows that record at all, so it's not like they were playing like the best 2 songs that they've released. It was like, here's some stuff you're not really familiar with yet, and you're just like, oh, but we've just had like all of this stuff that we love for years. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. Good show though.
Amazing.
Really good show. And yeah, they released this live album as well, which I've been spinning. But you'd think they would release it with all of the songs, but it's just a selection of stuff from the night. And it's not in order, which is like kind of, I don't know why not.
Yeah.
But there you go. They just released a little segment of it, which is a shame.
Yeah.
I don't think it was filmed, so I don't think it's like they've done that and there's a DVD on the way. I think it's just, that's it.
Interesting. But maybe it flows better that way. Maybe I don't know. I'm not in the room where it happens. I don't know. No, that sounds really cool. And I see you've got another concert here that you went to that I know that you were talking about last week.
Yeah, I've actually been to 2 concerts, I think. Is there a third one? Maybe it's just 2. I saw Green Lung at the weekend, which was really good. And I saw Till Lindemann do his solo show last night, which I feel very conflicted about because of all the sort of news circulation that's happened over the summer. I bought the ticket before any of that surfaced. Right. There's stipulations in the email. You can't sell it. You can't transfer it. It's like some e-ticket nonsense, whatever. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just go then. I spent 80 quid on this and I feel a bit weird about it. But I can't get rid of the ticket. So I guess I'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
I hate to say that it's maybe one of the most incredible live shows I've been to. It was incredibly entertaining. It was fantastic.
Wow. Okay.
Such a unique entertainer and an explicit one at that. But I, me a year ago would have killed to see that gig. I would have found it so fun, so exciting. I would have been in the mosh pit singing along. But this time I was just like, this guy might be kind of an asshole, but it's not really confirmed.
Right.
And if it was clear cut, it would be different. But because there's still kind of ambiguity around it, for me at least, I feel like it's a bit ambiguous. There's definitely precedent from when stuff like this has happened before with large celebrities. Even though at the time it's been like, oh no, that's not the case, and then 5 years later it's like, oh actually no, that was the case. So our bad. Yeah. There's a bit of a precedent of that. I feel. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know how to feel about it. Incredible show, but I think for the time being, until I kind of work out how I feel about it, I'm not going to give Lindemann Solo Project or Rammstein any money. I'm just kind of going to sit on it for a while and see how it goes.
Keep it at arm's length, right?
Yeah. I think I'm feeling like an article brewing about it. A sort of like, should you how to like move forward when that kind of news comes out about an artist and a band, should you sit and grieve them and walk away from it? Do you keep going because, maybe it wasn't that bad, but in this case it sounds kind of bad and kind of serial, and at least from the allegations, it wasn't like, this thing happened 20 years ago, but he learned his lesson.
Yeah, he's grown past it, right? It's like, it might still be happening to this day.
Yeah, it's like,
maybe we're kind of encouraging it. Like, who knows?
Yeah, it's like, this is stuff that happened in the last, like, a year. And it's ongoing. And there was no remorse. There was just denial. There's no, things need to change. It's just, there's no problem here. Yeah. And because it got thrown out of court, because there was no evidence, none of the victims came forward in the German judicial system. Yeah. A jury didn't even have a chance to assess the situation. Yeah. In that sense. And there's people saying, well, because they didn't come forward, does that mean they were lying? Well, I don't think so. Yeah. The people were in completely different countries outside of legal jurisdiction of Germany. So it's kind of like, why would you put yourself through that when you've kind of already said what you need to say about it? So I don't know. It's a tricky scenario, and I don't really know how to feel about it.
Yeah, it's sticky. You gotta kind of sit in it for a little bit, see how see how it percolates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you been up to then?
In terms of like music that I've been listening to, it's been like all Christmas all the time. And we'll dive a little bit deeper, I think, into the body of this episode. But yeah, as I've been saying from like mid-November, it's usually the Christmas music, finding more Christmas music. And also just working on those albums that I didn't get to through the year to do like a big final, like, hey, here's like 30 albums that I listened to that I didn't have enough to say for a full-length album review, but here's enough that I want to at least let you know about. But also just there's a few albums that came out recently that I've been really loving. As you know, I've been getting into a lot more black metal this year. So I've been loving the new Panopticon album, The Rime of Memory.
Right.
That was quite tasty. And obviously one that we've been looking forward to, or at least I've been looking forward to for a very, very long time, that finally released, was Him Lay Back in Volume 2 from Moon Safari. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. It lived up to the hype, and for an album that we've been waiting for over 10 years, it lived up to the hype, and I would actually say exceeded. So I know.
Not often you hear that.
Not often do I hear that. So those are like the big ones, and obviously the Peter Gabriel album that we'll talk about a little bit later on. And I got to see a show. I got to actually see a show this time around. I saw the Trans-Siberian Orchestra because of course I have to. Came to Toronto. My dad took the family out for Christmas. Like, this was kind of like his big Christmas gift to us. So he took myself, he took my fiance, her mom, my stepmom, and my brother and myself out. And it was a great time. They did the whole Ghosts of Christmas Past, or Ghost of Christmas Eve, I think it was. They did that like compilation album that they released a while ago, that they put a DVD out for. And it's just good fun. Have you ever seen the Trans-Siberian Orchestra?
I haven't. No. I heard a lot of people saying their last album or the one before was like really badly mixed and was like...
Yeah, their last...
and I heard that and I was like, oh, I'll leave it for now. I'll come back to them another time. I've also heard like incredible things about their live shows and everything. So it's a big contrast of like one versus the other. But no, I'm not super familiar with them. I'm kind of just aware of them in my kind of peripheral, I guess.
That's fair. Yeah, their last album, like Letters from the Labyrinth or something like that, it was not good. It was not a good album. The mixing and mastering was garbage, and the songs were just really not great. And it's also like one of their non-Christmas albums, because they have 3 Christmas albums and then 3 non-Christmas albums. And like their first non-Christmas album, Beethoven's Last Night, is one of the best things I've ever heard. It's a concept album, a story about Beethoven's last night. The other non-Christmas album, the Night Castle or something like that. It's a double disc concept album, and it's fine. But honestly, I think most people know them from their Christmas music. So when they tour at Christmas. They tour all the Christmas songs. They'll play one or 2 songs from Beethoven's Last Night or the Night Castle and just pretend that Letters from the Labyrinth didn't exist. Which I think is for the better. Because it was, and unfortunately, like the main producer and the main songwriter has passed on, so I don't think we're going to get any new Trans-Siberian Orchestra music. But they have enough of a back catalog, and everybody loves the classics, so it's a great show. I was thinking about this when I was watching it. It's a very, and I mean this both as a derogatory, but also as like a descriptor. It's a very boomer show, like it's very like they're doing things that I'm like, that's a choice that a boomer would have made, like it's the only way to describe it. It's like all of the women singers lead with their breasts whenever they walk out. And it's like, people don't walk like that, and they were probably told, like, nobody would have chosen to walk out that way. And like, nobody walks out like that. And it was just so ridiculous. So yeah, there's just a lot of things on there that I was just like, that's a choice. And I know the demographic that would make that choice. That being said, great fun. Great fun. I highly recommend it for anybody that sees Trans-Siberian coming by. So yeah, that was my show. It was a good time.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Very good. Do we want to drop right into the news?
Let's do it. Let's drop into that news. We've got some
There's
hot
a
news
little bit
too.
of news. Yeah, even though it's it's getting to the end of the year, things are slowing down, things are winding up, but still some winglets of things going
Some
on.
winglets. Yeah, got some crumbs, got some morsels for us, some cheeses for us Mises.
And this is one you'll have to take the front on, because I'm aware of who Kat Dennings is. I'm not so aware of Andrew WK, but the two of them just got married.
Oh. Yes, so those more in the know would know that Kat Dennings and Andrew WK had been dating for quite a while. Like, it's been like one of the more healthy, I think, music / Hollywood relationships. The two of them are a little bit more private, I think. Like, Andrew WK has basically gone radio silent since like 2021, when he put out his last album of God is Partying. Because he just like deleted all of his social media and like stopped all of his tours. He had like one tour coming up back in 2022 that he's just like, nah, man, I can't do it. So like, I feel as if their relationship is one of the more healthy ones within this whole landscape that we find ourselves in. And this is the first time that anything has kind of resurfaced from them. I mean, Andrew WK put out one of my favorite albums in 2020 or 2021. I can't remember when it came out. It was called You Are Not Alone. And yeah, it was a little ham-fisted. It was a little over the top, but I loved it. And I mean, I also know him just from my high school. Like, not personally. I didn't go to school with him. But like, I listened to his music in high school.
Right, yeah.
Like, I remember the one album where it's like his face with a massive bloody nose. So yeah, I'm just happy for them. It sounds like they got married like at their house, with a very small wedding party, and Kat basically took care of everything. And so yeah, you have, and again, power couple if there ever was one. You have Kat Dennings she played in the Thor movies. She was in Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. I remember her from, what was it, Two Broke Girls, I think was the TV show that she was on forever.
The main thing I know her from is I watched a lot of Two Broke Girls, probably too much, because it was kind of bad at points. Like, the bad points, it was kind of really bad.
Yeah, I mean,
but I've been her in the Marvel films, seeing her come in and out of the Marvel stuff. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
she can do drama as well as comedy. Fun.
Yeah, and I'm just happy for them, and that's why I brought that up, because I just wanted to express my gratitude and my happiness for them. So, yeah, that's the big news. That's the main big news. And we've got a couple discussions, but do we want to go into the discussions first, or do we want to do the festival watch?
Oh, I think we should have a little look at the festival watch.
Let's go to the festival watch. As we know, we like to take a look at the festivals that are dropping this coming year. And this was one that I sent you earlier this week. Well, I sent you two. The first one is just more of I had a giggle because it's less of a festival and more of a tour. Loserville is touring with Limp Bizkit, special guest Bones. I just think that's hilarious. They're coming to Toronto on July 24th. So I might have to look that. But honestly, the one that I want to talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong with the pronunciation, I believe it's Wacken, or is it Wacken?
Yeah, it is Wacken.
Wacken. Yeah, this is already sold out, and when you look at the bands that are going to be at Wacken, you kind of understand why. I think the one that jumps out for both of us, and I don't want to speak for you, but Haken's going to be there. Love
Cool.
to see, love to see Haken. But they're on the second list. You know, it's Scorpions are headlining with. Is it Amon Anarth?
Oh yeah, I'm on a mouth. Yeah.
Amon Amarth? I'm not familiar with Amon Anarth.
Oh, I'm a big fan. They're
Okay.
oh no, which Nordic country? It's either Finland or Norway,
Right.
or maybe it is actually Sweden, and I'm completely missing out.
Mm-hmm.
Let me grab that. Sweden. There you go.
Sweden.
Yeah, they've been around
Yeah,
30 years now. They do like Viking Melodeath stuff. Super fun
Nice.
live. I've seen them a couple of times.
Okay. Amazing. The ones that I'm excited for, Spirit Box and Dragon Force. I saw those, and I'm like, 3 bands that I'd want to go see: Opeth, Dragon Force, and Spirit Box. So, yeah, it looks like we've got some good bands. But if you don't already have tickets, sorry, you're out of luck. It's already sold out.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just like this festival just sells out before anything even gets announced. That's just kind of how it is each year.
Yeah.
And every time you look back at it and you're just like, damn, what an incredible lineup.
Yeah.
Every single year. And yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Cool. So that was our festival watch for this round. We got 2 kind of discussion items. One is just kind of like a placeholder. I feel like whenever we're doing our episode leading up to Christmas, and it's just kind of having a quick roundtable of Christmas music. I know we did one last year. Any updates? Any big Christmas stuff that you've been listening to this year?
I've not really touched much Christmas music yet, which feels criminal. But I kind of stayed away from it a little bit. I'm kind of waiting until it's the Christmas week, so to say, because I've got a lot of family stuff to get to and Christmas dinners and all sorts. So I'm just like, that's going to be an intense period of Christmas, and it's going to be a lot. And I kind of like, I think I still want to hold on to my regular listening for a little bit. The one I've been excited for the last couple of years has been the project that Charlie Griffiths from Haken has always been putting together. Slayer, which
can't go wrong.
You know, there's been nothing I've seen posted anywhere yet about it, but it has gone quite late, usually the 20-something of December each year. So excited to see if there's going to be one this year, because he's done it for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, and I've been keeping my eye out for it because you introduced it to me last year. Because we had, was it Season's Greetings in the Abyss was the one from last year?
Yeah, but it was like a big melody
and it was kind of
all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been keeping my eye out, and I hadn't seen any whispers. You know, I've seen a couple of videos from Charlie Griffith, but nothing specifically around Slayer. So yeah, I didn't see anything.
Yeah, we shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see.
We shall see. Well, if you need any recommendations for Christmas music, I've mentioned several. As I mentioned, I already have 4 or 5 playlists I can share with the group.
Wow.
It's sure to get you into the Christmas spirit. And in terms of new Christmas stuff that I've been listening to this year, my partner and I earlier in the year watched the musical Hadestown. It's brilliant and gorgeous, but because they only got like a few months of theater time before they had to lock down because of COVID, as a way of solidarity, they put out a Christmas album. So it's called If the Fates Allow, a Hamilton Christmas album, and it is gorgeous. It's beautiful. Very chill, very chill. So that's the
Very
big
cool.
Christmas thing that I've been listening to. Outside of, are you familiar with the December People?
I've heard of the Decemberists, but I'm not familiar with the December people.
Yeah, so my friend Nathan from Nathan on Shuffle introduced me to this. They put out an album in 2001 called Sounds Like Christmas, and it's about 13. I like to think that it's 12, but 13 tracks, and each track is done in a different progressive rock band style. And half the fun is trying to figure out which band they're emulating. They cover everything from Kansas to Genesis to King Crimson to Emerson, Lake and Palmer to Yes, and some like immediately you're like, oh yeah, that's Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Like there's that classic Hammond organ sound that Keith just loves to beat the shit out of. So it's a lot of fun. That was one that I was introduced to very late last year, so this year I've been listening to it a little bit more. Should have listened to it. Oh, she's found something. She looks very intent. For those of you that don't have the videos.
It just popped up on my screen saying, "Would you like to use this other audio device?" And I was like, "What? No." But it just switched to it anyway.
Oh.
So that's great.
That's great.
So yeah, I have no idea what you just said for the last 30 seconds.
Oh shoot! I'm just saying you should listen to the December People. Each track is done in a different flavor of a progressive rock band.
Yes, okay.
And half the fun is trying to figure out which one is Genesis, which one is King Crimson, and which one is like Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So
that's cool. That's a good concept. I like that.
It is, yeah, and it's not like a novelty. Like, yes, it's a little bit of a novelty, but like the songs are good enough that it's more than just a novelty. So,
well, there you go. That's
there
cool.
you go. Do we want to talk about the? I was gonna say, do you want to talk about? This was something that I don't want to say it's a bee in my bonnet. I don't want to necessarily say that. Like it bothers me, but I've noticed within the past little bit, just because I've been in the YouTube game for so long and the music reporting game, it feels like there's like almost like this Christmas creep of year-end lists. And well, I would like to know how you feel about this. In my mind, I feel like we're coming out way too early with these lists.
The year has coming out.
Well, that's the thing. Like, what do you do? Okay, so I'm glad that we're at least on the same page. Because I do have some contemporaries that they put out their top 10 list in like the first week of December, and I'm like,
yeah, no.
The Peter Gabriel album that we're going to be talking about hadn't dropped yet. The Him Lay Back in Volume 2 from Moon Safari hadn't dropped yet. You have a full month of albums that you're missing out because you want to get those clicks, and I get it. It's so tempting to get your list out first because you want to get the most amount of eyes. You don't want to be the last of the crowd to get that out. But like,
yeah, I feel like that's what's happened. People have just raced to get them out earlier and earlier, so that they've got the first list.
Yeah.
It's kind of frustrating. But I think it's the same with the Spotify Wrapped stuff coming out as early as it does. You know, that misses out November and December.
Yeah.
But the top lists kind of miss out a lot, I think. Which I think is a real shame. And it also is like, I don't know, they just come out too soon. It's like, it's too quickly. You know, I do it for podcast each year. I try to do something different. I'm not quite worked out what I'm doing for this year yet. But I like to get all the writers involved and have a different way of having the top albums, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so it's not just like, oh, this is the best one. It's like, well, okay, here's our criteria for this year. We were looking for the best album that had a dog on the cover. Here's our list for 20, something like that. I mean, not quite like that, but I'm looking for that kind of a bit of a spin on it that makes it a bit different. I'm not even thought of what that idea is yet. I'm not thinking about it until January.
Yeah.
You know, maybe January 1st, I think, is the earliest I drop it. But I've not even considered that yet from an editorial point of view. But for full disclosure, I write for other publications as well. And I've already submitted 2 end-of-year lists.
Grace, you're just as bad as them. You've become a
like,
cog.
I'm part of the editorial teams, the writing team. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not setting the deadlines. If someone wants a top 10 list on their desk, they're going to get it from me. But
yeah,
I'm like, oh, I wish I could have waited a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I was shocked when I saw the Prog Report put out their the viewer's choice categories, and there were like at least one album that hadn't been released yet on that they were like, yeah, one of the best albums of the year. Here's an album that you haven't heard yet. And I'm just like, that's a head scratcher, you know? I get that you want to get, I get that you want those tasty engagement numbers. I get it. But at least like, yeah, just pump the brakes just a little bit. Like, I'm planning to put out my videos for like the top whatever it's going. I haven't even thought about it yet. Like, obviously I have a nebulous list in my head of
I mean, I've started going through stuff and ranking stuff, but it doesn't feel settled yet.
Yeah, I haven't even put pen to paper. Like, I just have 3 albums that I'm like, which one do I like the most? But other than that, like, I haven't even begun to thought about that. Because I don't think I'm going to be doing the video until like the week of Christmas. Like, maybe I'll put it out on the 27th or the 29th. But yeah, I still have videos that I want to make. You know, I still have records that are dropping that I want to talk about. So I think the main thesis of this is just, I understand that for many people, you know, they've listened to all that there is out there at the moment and they've made up their mind, but just hold off until maybe the later half of December, you know, like last 2 weeks, friends. That's just my own
issue
2
is,
cents.
right, come 2024, people aren't including stuff that came out in December in their lists. They're not going to. So it's like, there's just this void of albums that if you're an artist and you release any music in December, it just gets ignored to an extent. Which is kind of a real shame, I think. Yeah,
because
it's very arbitrary.
Yeah,
you know, it's an arbitrary definition of when the seasons start and end.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, because 2 amazing albums dropped in December. Do we want to talk about one of them? I know that you weren't quite ready to talk about. I know. I mean,
if you think it's amazing.
Well, okay. So before we hit the record button, I finished recording. Now this is just raw material. My review of this record, and the raw material of it was like 48 minutes. So I have a lot to edit. We are talking about Peter Gabriel's latest album of I.O. So why don't you give us
Octopus, maybe? Who knows what it stands for?
Well,
probably input output, right?
It is. I was going to say that's what it actually stands for. But who knows? The scientists have yet to agree. Yeah.
No, exactly.
What did you think of
one in the?
That's right, in our year-end list. What did you think about this record? I feel like I might have a little bit more to say about it, but I'd love to hear what you thought about it.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. So I've never really dived into Peter Gabriel's solo material before.
Oh, okay.
I've never given it a shot. And the reason for that, even though I'm such a huge fan of Peter Gabriel era Genesis, and I prefer it to the Phil era, I find anything after Duke pretty unlistenable.
Fair.
Which again is a spicy take. It's not unlistenable. It's just, they were a pop band at that point, and it's not.
Yeah.
Particularly, 80s pop. Some of it does stuff for me. Genesis didn't really.
Yeah, I always figured they were a pop band that had like 1 or 2 proggy pop tracks. You know, like you have Home by the Sea 1 and 2, you have Mama, you have Driving the Last Bike, you have The Fading Lights, you have Domino. But like those are 5 tracks over the course of 4-5 albums. The rest are all pretty pop.
Yeah. And the thing is, I didn't stop following things from Genesis members. You know, I've listened to a fair bit of Anthony Phillips over the years. I have listened to every single Steve Hackett solo album. At least
Got a
once.
new one. Got a new one coming out in the new year.
We have. I'm excited for that. Very
Pretty
excited.
stoked.
So and that feels like the continuation of 70s Genesis for me.
Yeah.
So I've stuck with that, and I was like, oh, Peter Gabriel's doing something, okay. And I've never taken the time to delve in, especially because he's been such an inactive artist, I think, for a long time. Because this is the first album of original material, I think, since 2002, is my understanding.
Since Up, which came out in 2002.
There's a couple of albums in between. New Blood, which was remixes and changes around versions of older songs that he'd already released. So it's Scratch My Back as well in 2010, which was, I remember my dad talking about it and telling me about it, where it's basically an album of songs that, you know, Peter Gabriel's covered other people's songs and other people have covered Peter Gabriel songs, and it's kind of, it was supposed to be more even, but then people didn't want to cover Peter Gabriel songs, and it kind of just turned into a bit of a logistical nightmare, I think, to get released. Was how my dad explained it.
My understanding is, so he put out Scratch My Back, which was him covering a bunch of other people's music, with the stipulation that there were no traditional drums, like the drum kit, and no guitars. Everything else is still on the table, but those 2 elements had to be removed. And so he put that out after waiting for everybody else, because it's like, hey, I'm going to cover your track, you'll cover mine. Half the bands didn't want to follow that regiment, and the other were just, they submitted and it didn't. So instead, he was like, well, I still love this idea. And that's when he did the New Blood, where he did all those tracks from him, where he didn't do it with guitars or drums, and found an orchestra to help fill him out. Eventually, a number of years later, he was able to convince enough bands. Some of them were from the Scratch My Back roster, and some of them weren't, to cover his own work. And he's like, no stipulations, do what you want with it. And that's where we get And I'll Scratch Yours.
There you go.
So, yeah, little history lesson there.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
I just start nerding out.
It's filling in gaps for me as well. Yeah, so it's kind of, I've not had a reason to go and try and uncover the secrets of Peter Gabriel. So I didn't, I kind of knew to expect something very different to 70s Genesis. I wasn't expecting him to do the same stuff as that, because it's been 50 years.
Yeah.
We're getting to that point now where a lot of the Genesis albums are turning 50, which is terrifying. So obviously it's not going to be that, and he's not a guitarist. He's not a bass player. There's not going to be those kind of elements. So I was expecting a mellower output, and that's what it is. It's kind of, it does feel like a very, very much a lead singer of a band has put out a solo album. And yeah, it's mellow. It's kind of a bit of a warm hug. His voice holds up super well. Nothing was super standout-ish necessarily, aside from Olive Tree. I quite enjoyed when the brass kicks in. I was like, okay, this is pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
Yeah,
but it's very mellow, and it's very. It feels like him going, right, that's it, guys. This is the last one. You're staying in 20 years to do this. Are we going to see another album from him in 20 years' time? I doubt it.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like this is his last kind of statement, his last musical statement, something he wants to go out on. And it feels very conclusive to me. Like it feels very melancholic, very reflective, and just, like that's kind of the close of his career in a sense. I'm not saying it is,
Mhm.
but given his track history, I'm not sure, there's going to be something else that comes in, really.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I can see that. So I'm a huge Peter Gabriel fan. It's like him and Kate Bush are my two favorite musical artists. Um, and I did a whole like top 10, or not top 10, but like worst to best of all of his records. I enjoyed all of them. My two favorite records from him are still his first solo record, the one with Salisbury Hill, um, and the one that came out in 2002, Up. Those two records are just full on masterpieces. I love those albums so very much. Um, I do feel as if there's a little bit of a hit and miss with some of his discography. Like there are some albums of his that I'm like, it's fine. But when it hits, it's like a warm hug, as you say. This album, I wouldn't necessarily say is my favorite of his because it is very mellow. It doesn't quite have the same amount of teeth that some of his more experimental records are. Like he did a couple in the late 70s, early 80s. Like his first four are just self-titled. There's no other real naming convention outside of the ones that the fans have given. And all of those are very experimental, very art rock, like art first, rock second. And it wasn't until like the mid 80s, early 90s where he started to become a little bit more pop again. And that's where we get like In Your Eyes and Sledgehammer and, tracks like that. And so this doesn't quite have that same popular appeal that So and Us, the 80s and 90s do. And it doesn't have that same kind of experimentation that the self-titled works have. Now, what it does still have is a pretty layered, textured, self-reflective piece. Like there's a lot of reflection going on this record. There's a lot of different layers on it. You've got the two mixes, which I think those who will fall in love with this record, it will encourage them to go into music production rather than, because I feel as if this album is going to be very similar to how Lord of the Rings convinced a lot of people to go into the movie industry rather than just to become an actor. This album will convince people to go into the music industry and not just a musician. Just because it's really showing you how production can be used in that sense. Some songs work better than others on this album. I love I.O. I love Road to Joy. I love Panopticon. My favorite track off of this album, Olive Tree, and what was it? Playing for Time, the third track, because I saw Peter Gabriel when he was touring his Back to Front, which was like the 25th anniversary of So, and he started the concert with this incomplete, unfinished song, and it was the roadmap for what would then become Playing for Time. So I love seeing where the track was in its genesis, and where it is now. So yeah, I have been thoroughly enjoying this. It's very dense. There's a lot to dig into, comparing and contrasting the two mixes. But
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I said this, I've said this before about records. I kind of hate when there's two versions of an album as soon as it comes out. Like King Gizzard just released the Silver Chord, and they did the short mix or the regular version and then the extended version, and I've heard fans be like, well, the extended mix is the only mix, like the regular version's like you're missing all the good bits. It's like, well, am I? That's not, but that's like the extended version in my mind. That's like the bonus tracks. That's not what they intended. It's something else, right?
Yeah.
Same with bands like Transatlantic, who released 3 versions of their latest album. 3.
That's a lot. Too much, guys.
Yeah.
Too much.
And they're all. It's not even like it's the same music, because it's all different arrangements and stuff, different bits, different songs. Some stuff's extended, some stuff's shrunk down. I mean, honestly, how those guys found the time to do that is nuts.
Ridiculous. I mean, they had to do
honest.
something during lockdown.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the album already is 90 minutes, 2 hours long. So, yeah, who knows? So, yeah, I'm kind of like, I chose one of the mixes. I chose the inside mix.
The inside is the I think that's both mixes, because you have the bright side and the dark side, and then the inside. And inside is
so
both?
there's 3 versions.
Yeah. Where did you find inside? Because on my streaming site, which is unfortunately Spotify, I only have the dark side and bright side.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at Apple Music now. So yeah, there's a double album which has the bright side and the dark side. And then there's another release which is the inside mix. So
the inside, I think, is a conglomeration of the two, like a smashing together of the two.
Well, that's the one I've been listening to. Because I was like, I don't have time for like all these different versions. I didn't realize the other one was a double album. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, but do what you want. It's music, right? There's no right answers, but
yeah,
it's kind of annoying. But then and he can do what he likes. He's had an incredible career. He's got enough money in the bank. Who gives a shit if anyone buys the album? He probably doesn't. So, do what you like.
Do what you like. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate why he did it. He got 2 different producers from 2 very different backgrounds. One was a little bit more on the popular mainstream music that had worked with U2 and Beyonce and Marshmello and all that, and got another one that was much more independent, that would work with bands like oh boy, they've all just left my head. And of course my notes are in the other room where I had it, but like the Black Keys, I know, was somebody that he worked for. Her name is on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, a little bit more independent, right? So you can hear how the same music is being mixed by 2 different approaches, and that's fun. But like, unless you're looking for it, it does sound the same. Like you have to look for it, but he can do what he wants, right?
Yeah, who cares, right? There's no right answers. There's going to be people out there that prefer one version over the other and love that there's multiple versions of it, because they love going down. I have too much music to listen to spend that much time on one record these days. So that's where I'm at with it. But for the super fans, I'm sure they're like, this is brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm the super fan.
So it's nice to have options, I guess, right?
Yeah. I would say, as the kids are saying, and it's been stuck in my head all day, it's goated with the sauce, this album.
It's goated with the sauce. Wow.
It's goated with the
sauce.
That
is, what a review.
What a review. Yeah. You can use that specific clip, like that poll quote, on all marketing.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
There you go.
That's that.
That's that, and I think that's going to draw this little episode to a close. So thank you all for tuning in. This is going to be the last one of the year. We're going to take a couple weeks off. We're going to join you not next week, but next year, where we'll have our favorite records, maybe our least favorite records in the metal and prog genres.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift is way up there.
Or way down there.
Or way down there, who knows?
Find out.
Tune in to find out. So we'll catch everybody in the new year. The usual thanks and the usual places where you can connect with us if you so choose. I think the easiest way to connect with us currently is just through email. Shoot us a line. We're themetalheadpod@gmail.com. We are also on socials, Instagram, Twitter. I believe it's all Metalhead Pod. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. And I want to, of course, thank Grace for not only just being an amazing co-host, but for writing the music of this little podcast.
There you go.
So, there you go.
Many talents.
Many talents. And one of her biggest talents is giving us the tagline at the end of each episode, which this time is, of course.
Oh, yeah. If you see them fall down in the ice cavern, make sure they don't eat the yellow snow when they're down there, and then pick them up out of it, because you shouldn't be in an ice cavern. That's probably quite cold.
Yeah. Tell that to Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back.
He needs to know.
He needs to know.
Spoilers for anyone that's not seen that.
It's right at the beginning of the movie.